Good afternoon, thank you for watching Rundlii Gaming. We're going to be doing another video. This one will be on Masterplan Tycoon. Just some random thing we kind of came across, and we're going to give it a shot. So I did kind of mess around with it a little bit, just kind of get a general gist of how it plays, and do it to games like Factorio. I'm a big fan of the style of game. But I think this one is a little bit more friendly towards pathing, as you can do a lot more cool, like complicated stuff with like Factorio, for example, than you can with this one here. So essentially, how this game runs is you would build an object, in this case, like a well, and then you basically use these pathing routes to then link it to something like storage if you want to store it. So kind of like your crates and stuff in like Factorio. And you're kind of making these little mazes with pretty much everything. And from that, you can build new storages, for example. I don't think there's any kind of limit. Well, I mean, I guess there is a limit on it, but generally, you shouldn't really hit those limits too often, as long as you have places to output a lot of that stuff as well. So pretty much what we're going to start with here is going through and building up planks, which will help us be able to construct more buildings as well. So in this case, we want to do a lumber camp. These green things here are our trees. We can pretty much place it anywhere we want within it. Let's go ahead and put it in a little bit more of the thicker area here. That way it just has more stuff to cut. And then a sawmill. We might actually use its example here to do that. And what you're going to see with each of these is you see like an output for this one. So this outputs trees, and this is where you would input them into. We're going to slow down the speed just a little bit. The game does move like extremely slow, so it's kind of good to speed up it a little bit at least. But as it puts in trees, then it takes a little bit of time to then build planks, and then planks will output. Whenever you output those planks, it'll go to your storage, which you'll see in the top left up here. Next thing we're going to do here is build quarries. So this is your stone resources. And with stone, let's go ahead and put that close here. And stone don't actually have to output into anything specific as of right now. Now that might change later, but as of right now, we just take stone, put it in storage. And that's also another building resource, so basically use the stone to also build other buildings. Because for example, like if we want to build this quarry, it requires 2 planks, as you see to the right there, and it takes about 1 minute 15 seconds to build. If we want to do a lumber camp, we need 2 planks. Sawmill, 2 planks, 1 stone. So that's the general gist. I mean, you're basically throwing it all to storage and use that storage to then build stuff. So in this case, we next want to do a fishery, because we're still kind of going through the tutorial stuff here. And so basically with fish, how some of these buildings will start to function pretty soon is they have something called maintenance. I don't believe any of these yet do. And fish ends up being one of the maintenances, as well as water. So you kind of need water or fish to make certain buildings function. So let's go ahead and build another fishery. And the good thing too is you can pretty much just move around these buildings pretty freely, as long as they still meet like placement requirements. So for example, if I want to move this fishery, like say here, or if you want to move this lumber camp because maybe they cut down most of the trees, then that's very easy to do as well. In this case, I guess I wanted us to move to that specific spot. So that said, Now it does want us to buy... Oh, another thing I haven't mentioned yet is one thing you'll see is you see how that line goes red. That basically means that it broke the connection. So if you wanted to move it here, for example, it wouldn't work because of that red line. So all in all, I would say it is pretty friendly towards pathing stuff. Now that being said, this does get pretty busy because you start to build into a whole lot more stuff. So you'll see what I'm talking about real shortly here. So we're going to get a well because... so at this point it wants us to get a bunch of fish and water. So we have this well way down here and then the second one here. So it's basically about 2 of each pretty quickly. So now we're going to start another grouping of stuff up here. So we've been working with the tier 0 stuff, which is just really baseline things. So next thing we're going to do is we'll build a farm. I know it says it wants it down here, but we're going to give ourselves a little bit more space. And another thing too is you do want to make sure that you build stuff within range of the storage. Because in order for the storage to pay things like maintenance, so for example what you see here is the maintenance is 1 fish, 1 water. So in order for this to operate, it needs a constant source of fish and water. So that said, next thing we're going to do is we basically want to eventually build into a bakery. So we're going to go ahead and get a well next. We're going to put that near the water there. We're going to get a mill. Yeah, let's do it like that. And lastly, a bakery. So we want the grain to go here. So as you can see, a lot of this is very easy to figure out. And then we want to move the water into the water slot and meal into the meal slot. And I guess from here, it wants us to build another storage. This is actually within range of the storage, but I think originally it actually wanted us to build a little bit further to the right. And let's just go ahead and build the storage, just simply because otherwise we're never going to get past this point. So let's go and drop that one. Alright, so next thing we're going to do is move. Okay, so as you can see, the water is kind of in our way. So now bread is going there. And next thing we do is bring... So we're going to bring the stone up here. In order to get rid of this one, we're going to get rid of that. Then I guess it wants us to build another quarry just so that way we can continue getting resources here as well. So let's get a quarry. Actually, let's try to speed that up just a little bit too. And I think when you split them like this, it produces one every minute 15. So it is a bit slow on that side of it. And that's kind of where, like, I almost think it would be like mandatory to keep everything at like the highest speed for most of the game, just because it takes so long for anything to trigger on here. Alright, so we're going to go to the brick mission. And so I guess what this does is it kind of goes within the brick itself. So what we actually want to do is, in this mission, we eventually want to get clay here, and then build brick, and then eventually output that brick here. And that's pretty much what this entire mission entails. So, first thing we're going to do is build a storage. We're going to place it a little further up. We're also going to want to get planks. So let's do a lumber mill, sawmill, let's go ahead and put the planks in there. Next thing it wants us to do is sheep farms and sewing workshop. This will be in the tier. So clothing. Yeah, so in this case we do need planks. That's kind of a reason why we wanted to build this lumber and sawmill here, otherwise it might take a little while. So we're going to go ahead and add the sheep farm pretty far up north. It kind of just gives us a little more room to play with here, because otherwise it gets really congested really quickly and makes a lot of this stuff really hard to path. Sewing workshop is plank and stone. We are getting stone from outside, so there is that. So I think what we might want to do, just to speed this up just a bit, I'm not sure how well this will work, but we will give it a shot. Sometimes it's hard to path things from the right to the left, because like as you can see with that, it's sort of alright, so that will give us a little more planks. It also kind of bought us some time to, let the other one get planks as well. So we were working on clothes. So sewing workshop. And this is kind of where we were saying earlier. This requires maintenance, so we will end up needing fish and water for this to even work. So let's do fish, water, and now the short version is pretty much anything that goes to storage, anything within range of storage will receive its maintenance. So that said, if we do want to kind of ramp up the fish and water just to make sure there are no issues with supply chain and that, I'm going to just drop 2 of each, and I think that should probably be plenty for this particular mission. Yeah, so this one requires 1 fish, 1 water. This one requires 2 fish, 2 water, so it kind of does make things a little more difficult. So you kind of want to build like these little networks in order to kind of help with building that out. So tier 1. I guess in the meantime, we're going to go ahead and start the process of clay pit. Because the clothes may take quite a while for it to build out. Alright, so we got that, and then we have the brick factory. I guess we have to build beer too, because this one requires beer to also build it. So I think we need to do the whole farm thing. So farm, well, brewery. That's kind of where we're at. So we'll go here. Because unfortunately we don't have the upkeep for this one. So basically we have to build beer before we can even get the clay done. And then lastly, a brewery. Alright, so in this case we're going to do water here, we'll do grain there, we'll do beer here. And then pretty much with that beer, we now will have enough to then make the clay work. Because then we'll finally be hitting the maintenance of here. And that's where you're starting to see maintenance of that. Now remember, the entire mission of our goal was to get brick, so we effectively did all this stuff here just to produce these bricks. That's actually neat. So that is something I just learned as well. Apparently, if the dots kind of cross each other closely, they can actually slow each other down. So it's not entirely an unlimited amount of pushing things through here, because eventually you could end up queuing so much stuff here that it just starts blocking things. So that is an interesting little bit on there too. Yeah, so at this point we have completed this section. So now, because we did that whole entire mission, the only thing that actually changed for us is the stone and bread that goes into here now produces a brick. That's literally what we did for the past a bit of time right there. So basically, what it's wanting us to do right now is now build out clothes as well. So right now this is giving us bricks here, and what we want to do is build clothes and beer. So let's go, we'll start with clothes first. So basically a sheep farm that needs fish and water and more fish and water. Where do we want to actually build that out at? So let's see. I'm going to test a few things here. So I guess it doesn't entirely matter how much water there is, I don't believe. So for example, if we build like this, and this, I don't think it actually entirely cares. So now, for example, we could run that. And that's just strictly for the maintenance side of things. And we'll do one more for fishery. Okay, so that should hopefully cover our maintenance side. The next thing we needed was, okay, so basically where we were actually starting with this was going to be the sheep. So let's build this here. I'm pretty sure both storages actually cover that. And sowing. And then kind of as we discussed earlier with the lines here, as you are crossing each other, I believe that these actually do interfere with each other. So for example, if one of the resources comes across this line and it were to collide with one of the others, one of them would stop. And okay, so that's receiving its maintenance, and this is also getting its maintenance. And the next thing is we need to make some beer as well. So we are needing stone. And I guess because during this whole time we basically took both of these to kind of expedite this one, it sort of slowed down the entire process. Now, so far what this reminds me of, if you guys have ever played Factorio, in some of the later missions, what you can actually do is not just the singular, machines that you're building inside of, but you would then go into your next machine, build one summit, like into that, whatever you output there, then you send to the next one, and then to the next one. And so it kind of gives certain vibes similar to that. In some ways, this is a little more friendly of a setup, but in other ways, I can see it very well being kind of difficult as well. But I want to say this does feel more friendly than, say, Factorio does. But yeah, so we actually might move this farm. I actually want this a little, like, just south of the wool here. Let's do that. And then brewery. But with that said, I do believe we should be able to also do this any here to hit things as well. So we don't necessarily need to build another well. We can just do any from here, and it should link the water. Okay. That does actually make things a little bit easier. So for example, we're inputting a bunch of stuff in here. We can also output from here as well. And then we're going to put this beer into the next storage. Which does also mean, I kind of did a little bit of overkill with this too, because I was kind of expecting that we would have to buffer a bunch of stuff with this one. But I guess we could also use like the previous storage since it has its own water and fish storage as well. So yeah, I guess that would have been a little bit easier as well. Alright, so we're going to speed this up just a bit. So water is not the issue, it's the grain that's the issue. So I think what we kind of want to do is maybe get more grain going. Because it seems to be kind of the limiting factor here, because we have 6 out of 6 water. So water isn't the issue. And this might be where you kind of want to time different things, because, for example, it takes a minute for a grain to be done. And then it takes 45 seconds for And so I guess another aspect of this as well is that it kind of depends on what kind of length of these paths it is too, because once the thing has left the path, then it will allow the next one to go if the output's already there. So for example, if we had no beer sitting at the location right now, then it couldn't output anything just because it's not able to, but it won't output until this beer goes away. So I guess that is another aspect of it as well. Alright, so next thing we're going to do is pig farm and butcher. Oh, tier 2. So farm. Yeah, let's try. We're going to drop it a little further down. So we might have to go a little further north. And let's do another farm. And the thing is, I'm not sure how much we can overlap this without having problems. And it becomes its own kind of separate question. So this is about a minute. And that's 30 seconds, but it takes 2 grain. Yeah, so you almost need to push about 4 grain through just to get. Yeah, so that one's gonna be a little more demanding resource-wise. We're kind of testing the water here because I have kind of no idea what to do with it. Oh, maintenance also a bread. And we do have bread going up here. Okay, so that's we probably actually want to do that because like this is actually capped out on bread anyway. So basically, if we can start to filter that in, we can then make picks here. Okay, so that sort of worked out because we needed just a little bit of space here. Oh, yeah, actually that is wrong. We don't want that. We want to do the butcher again next. This is kind of questionable at best as to whether or not this will even work. And sausages. Can we go through there? We can. Okay. And so far, that's the introduction to Masterplan Tycoon. I do hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll probably do a few more videos on it just to kind of see people's interest in it. But so far, it's currently in kind of a demo stage. So, like, we'll definitely kind of see where it goes in the future. Like I said, it does have some neat kind of elements to it where, you know, you're kind of building through a lot of different ideas. I mean, like, it certainly does have some elements of, like, Factorio, but in its own kind of interesting direction with it. But otherwise, thank you all for watching. Rundlii Gaming. You have a good day.